From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can soon see more features like Bumblefoot, the SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon, courtesy of the Gavinator. Right now, you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR, Newswire, and much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Mighty Moose Beard Oil Company. It's 100% Canadian, 100% natural, taking care of beards around the world. Visit MightyMooseBeard.com. Use promo code SOR2019 today. One of Canada's biggest mysteries goes back almost 50 years, where disappearances and murders has unfortunately become a part of the northern culture. The Highway of Tears is about the missing and murdered women along a 724-kilometer stretch of highway in northern British Columbia. None of the 18 cold cases since the 1960s have been solved, but at one point, Portland drifter Bobby Jack Fowler had his DNA connected to a 1974 murder of 16-year-old hitchhiker Colleen McMillan. In Canada, more than 600 Aboriginal women have been reported missing or have been murdered since the 1960s. Documentary director Matt Smiley joins us to talk about his 2015 film regarding this historic case. Who is doing this? And why haven't the RCMP caught their killer? The website is highwayoftears.com. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the news on the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Matt Smiley, thank you so much for taking time out of filming to come do this with us. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I am doing absolutely fantastic. It's great to have you here. This is such an important aspect because where I live in the Caribou region of British Columbia, this is where it all starts. This is the beginning of the Highway of Tears that literally goes on for about 8, 10, 12 hours if you're driving right up to the Alaskan Highway. It is absolutely freaky. It's a story that I've wanted to do for a long, long time. What made you decide to do a documentary about this gruesome case?
Yeah, well, I definitely heard that you've been wanting to do it for a while. It did happen very much kind of by accident, and it was on a trip to northern BC, just outside of Prince George in Clucas Lake, where I first found out about one of the missing and murdered cases, and that's really what kind of spawned everything, because I had heard about a missing tree planter, and that was Nicole Hoare initially.
So you are a filmmaker. You live out of Los Angeles, California. Being from down there, were you very familiar at all with what was happening, this giant mystery in northern Canada that it seems doesn't get enough press?
Well, at the time, and especially at the time where we started filming, it was certainly something that I had not heard about at all. And even, I'm originally from Montreal, so I'd never heard about this story or had heard about any of the cases. And it wasn't until really I started diving deep into research that that I found out about a couple of the cases, and it kind of led me to really, once the term Highway of Tears started popping up, and there really wasn't a lot of coverage in the media about it, especially in 2013, 2014.
It really is one of those cases that is completely heartbreaking. I mean, these are innocent women who are walking either to or from town back to their homes and just vanishing into thin air. And for the majority of them, there's not even been any clues found, let alone a body to give some sort of finality to the family. When you started investigating this case and started looking into all of the notes and research that were out there, you must have had your mind blown that nobody outside of Canada had really picked up this story and did anything with it from a documentary level.
Yeah, I think in retrospect now, I think initially when I started working on the project, I think you kind of, once you dive into the research and then start speaking to people, my first initial idea was I wanted to work on a fiction film, nothing related to the Highway of Tears, but something more related to tree planters going missing. That my brother-in-law, who works in the reforestation industry, and that's initially where the fascination came from in doing kind of a fictionalized piece like that. And then as I really started diving into the research to kind of root the fictionalized story that I was going to work on with a little bit of reality, was fairly early on within the research that I realized that there was no way that I could at the time work on a fiction piece about this topic, because it was very much a very raw issue, especially when you start speaking to some family members. You know, it's sometimes hard to realize that, these are real people, these are real issues, and it was also up until very recently where nobody was paying attention.
Well, the ironic part of this all is in the past week, there have been 4 murders along the Alaskan Highway just in the last week. And it started off with a tourist couple, one from Australia, another one from North Carolina, who were traveling around the world. They were going up through British Columbia into Alaska, and they were murdered by gunshot. And then just this past weekend, a few days later, a sketch has now been released of a gentleman wearing a beard, and it looks like a Marine-style hat. You know, some sort of description as they are trying to point another case together where a pair of teenagers were just murdered from Port Alberni, British Columbia, which is on Vancouver Island, but they were up on a fishing trip in some of the lakes here in northern British Columbia. I mean, the irony behind us doing this show, and trust me, I don't think there's anything tied with it. I just find it highly ironic that here we are talking about the Highway of Tears with fresh blood right on the hands, gruesomely as well. Innocent people being gunned down for absolutely no reason other than being tourists. Well,
to me, I find it, number one, just very saddening, because I can, I've definitely spent a lot of time with various family members, not just from British Columbia, but now all over Canada, and especially even recently, we just had the final closing ceremony for the National Inquiry that was held in Ottawa at the National History Museum. And, it's sometimes hard to get into perspective, especially when you don't have a personal connection to the victims, is to, kind of put yourself in the shoes of really losing a family member. And in this case, it's true that there has been, over the last 3-4 years, a very strong concerted effort by especially the Canadian media like CBC and APTN to cover cases of the missing and murdered women and try to bring a human element to it, because people weren't caring about it. And it's interesting, as you say, that this happens now, because I feel, and it's not necessarily just the news cycle's fault, but as soon as people sort of start to forget that there still are so many families out there that have no answers, that there are still bodies that haven't been found, and those are, loved ones, and cases that haven't been solved, this kind of brings it back in a very shocking way. And sadly, too, in a very international level, especially with the amount of murders that are being presented right now, currently.
Matt Smiley is our guest tonight. He is the director of the film Highway of Tears. Highwayoftears.com is the website, or pardon me, highwayoftearsfilm.com is the website if you want to check it on out. Matt, when you were deciding that you needed to do this film, that you needed to get to the heart of this, what was the reaction from the First Nations communities about you digging in to what was going on? Because for a lot of topics up here in British Columbia and in Canada in general, there is not a lot of love lost between the Indigenous people and the politicians, the police, the general public. Yet you were going into something that was extremely sensitive, and here you were trying to say, I want to make a film about this. I want to tell your story. What was the reaction you received?
I think, in all truthfulness, I went into it quite naively, because I didn't necessarily know anything about it aside from the research that I had done, and I don't think I quite understood the root causes and to how deep of a core really struck not only just the communities up here in northern British Columbia, but now in various communities across Canada, where Indigenous women and girls were going missing or being murdered. And, you know, the same can be also said about young Indigenous men as well. And to be truthfully honest, it wasn't, the doors were not open. And I do feel like there was a lot of resistance. Very cognizant that, I was a young white male, and also not from the community. So I think there's a lot of reservation, or there was, towards that. And it's also what were my motivations at the time? Why was I doing that? Very much for me, it was an extreme need to want to find out why this was happening and really bring it to light. And I think the more people that I spoke to, the more that they really understood what I was trying to find out. And it wasn't necessarily trying to help, but I think by understanding, my trying to understand, I think definitely helps give it a little bit more of a platform, because now I can definitely see that within, the media, these cases are definitely being talked about. And there's a lot more awareness, not just in Canada, but on a worldwide level. There's a lot of places where I do go, and people do know about this issue, and not necessarily just British Columbia, but obviously people are very much aware of where it's spawned from.
When you get into a case like this, and we're going to get heavily into it here for the next couple of hours, but when you go into a case like this, is it hard that it doesn't become personal, that it doesn't become a personal vendetta or a personal type of action that you were trying to put into the film? Because when you get attached to something, when you get close to something, we tend as humans to make it personal. And I'm just wondering if that happened for you in the filming of this.
I think it became personal very, very quickly, and I think it's hard not to be once you start speaking to family members. And the one thing it was very much a personal project, as far as where the initial inception came from, and the initial idea with my producing partner Carly Pope when we first started working on the project was this idea to go up north, not really know anybody aside from a couple of the phone calls that we had done, and just start asking questions. Because for me, I couldn't wrap my head around why so many girls were going missing and why these cases weren't being solved. And and still to this day that are not being solved. Obviously, near the end of our filming, as you mentioned in the beginning of our interview, Bobby Jack Fowler, they did solve that case, which I think there is a pressure that was relieved in that matter. But then for so many other family members, there's still not that closure. And many of the people that I met along this journey, it's impossible for them for me not to get too attached to them personally. Many of them have become very close friends, almost extended family members, and I've felt very privileged for them to share their stories with me, and many that were not shared in the film, but afterwards. And it's almost impossible not to take it personally. And I think while I didn't know the journey that I was going on initially, it's definitely taken somewhat of a center stage in my life, where it's something that I'm constantly trying to figure out or console family members, or always just be there and available as somebody that will listen, because sometimes there isn't that.
You mentioned that it was very tough for you to get into the families who were suffering and are currently suffering with the Highway of Tears and the victims. How did you build that trust? How did you make your mark being a complete stranger to being able to walk into these personal relationships and earn them in order to help create your documentary to tell their story?
I think there's a few factors, but the main one was essentially, I think, when I first got to Prince George, my sister and brother-in-law had lived here for a number of years. So I know my brother-in-law definitely knew a couple of people to kind of send me off in the right direction. And it's true that the first few people that I did meet, there's a level on their end of skepticism. I probably most likely and do very much know that I wasn't the first person to kind of come here and want to cover the story. I think certain families were somewhat taken advantage of, but also at the point where we did do the project, it didn't necessarily hit a national stage in the way that it has now, as far as a platform where people across the country are very much aware of this issue. And I think it was leading with my heart, and that was the number one factor in terms of I was going about this in an organic fashion. I didn't have a game plan. I didn't know really what I was getting into, but I think the main thing was the curiosity and finding out why. And I think it was really led by, hearing the tears of a family member on the phone while I was trying to figure out a completely different story, that I could sense that helplessness. And I'm definitely a sensitive person, so that definitely rubbed off on me. And that was really the igniter into this project, was if there was anything that I could do, because it seemed like growing up for me, Canada, for anybody that thinks of Canada, they're like, wow, this is the safest place in the world, and horrific murders like this would not happen. And, sadly that is the case. And my focus wasn't geared towards, can we find, for lack of better terms, the serial killer, or are there serial killers? What it led me to believe is that there are predators by opportunity, which to me is a bit more of a scary thing to think about. But it also really, really, for me, brought me in touch with Indigenous culture also Canada's history with Indigenous culture and how it was destroyed over, let's give or take, 150 years.
Matt, we only got about 2.5 minutes here before we go to break. When you were meeting with these First Nations families and trying to gain their trust to tell their stories, did you make any promises to them that you wouldn't be changing their story to an opinion of yours or any type of hypothesis, that you just wanted to give their story of what they went through and the person that they lost? Was that important to you? How did you gain that trust?
That was one of the most important things, and I still go about it in the new documentary work that I'm focused on is establishing a relationship. And for many of them, it wasn't about signing releases and trying to get a quick interview. It was really about finding out what happened and really not knowing, and especially in this case, was not knowing where this story was going to go. And I really just wanted to figure out why this was happening and the underlying issues. And I think that was definitely felt by the family members and very much the communities. And even though, the RCMP and I in the early stages was also a hard shell to break through. But I think when everybody realized that, my intentions were to try to give them a platform, that I think that was definitely registered and appreciated.
It is very tough in those areas when you're dealing with one faction of society that doesn't trust anybody. You're dealing with another faction who's trying to keep the case under wraps so that way they don't blurt out any information that could maybe trigger to some sort of serial killer. But that's being put in a very difficult position when you're kind of caught in the middle wanting to do a documentary. And we got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think it is tough to be somewhat in the middle. I was not met with open arms. There's definitely a lot of people that were not in favor of my doing it, but I think after they realized where my heart was and what my intentions were, that definitely flipped. And I think once I started to share some of the initial cuts of what I was working on, I definitely started to win over their confidence, for sure.
Appreciate that. Matt Smiley is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. His website, highwayoftearsfilm.com. We're going to get into the RCMP, serial killers, what's going on in northern British Columbia, with more from Matt Smiley on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch. Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. to SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Glad to have each and every one of you here with us. Reminder to each and every one of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, listen to the show live. The Gavinator has some new features coming very, very soon, so check in often. We are talking about The Highway of Tears tonight. Director of the Highway of Tears film, add a .com on that, you got the website, is Matt Smiley. Now, this is a gentleman who knew nothing of this case till he decided to visit British Columbia up north and started hearing the stories. So much so, he felt the need to build a documentary around it. Came out in 2015. Highwayoftearsfilm.com is the website. You can check it out there. Matt, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Thank you for having me.
My friend, we were talking about the RCMP and the way that they have handled this case. The RCMP at times really do not seem to know what is happening, and maybe that's because of the fact that they are very, very quiet on this case. When you started talking around the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, what were the Mounties telling you?
At first, I really didn't get much. And the more I started to work on the project, and I think the more effort, and obviously I ended up starting to cover a fair amount of ground, I think they started to realize that I wasn't out to get them necessarily. There's certainly a very tainted history between, the indigenous population and the RCMP, whether it be First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. But from where I was coming from, I think was a level of everybody is a human being, and what was happening in the North was tragic, horrific, and not just destroying lives, but destroying families. And, I think when you look at the RCMP as a whole, there's certainly a lot of police officers that are in it for the best of intentions and do want to solve cases. With regards to anything, there's always people who are great at their jobs and others who aren't. And, sadly, there's a lot of cases that were not solved. And, I think this is very much a proven fact with regards to all the research that has been done, is that there was a lot of neglect as far as how these cases were treated. But as I continued to progress on this project, I did feel that there were several investigators that did entrust me with information that I don't think would have been shared with the general public to try and prove that obviously they are trying to solve some of these cases. And, as you know, especially in the North, and I would say a little bit less so now, but when there was less awareness about these cases, when you're talking about such remote locations, it's very hard to pinpoint who and why these crimes happen, especially when it could be a complete stranger.
In your opinion, in your talks with the RCMP and the First Nations regarding this, do you believe it is the work of one person, one serial killer, or a multitude of serial killers who know that because the towns up that north or that up north are so sparse and the police presence is even more sparse, that it's easier to get away with the crimes they want to commit?
I mean, sadly, I use the term serial killers very lightly, and I know that it's being thrown around quite heavily in the last couple of days with regards to the last murders that just happened. I think the thing that shocks me the most is definitely the predators by opportunity, which is a scary thought to think about, that people that normally wouldn't do this sort of thing because it's so remote, because there's not as much of a police presence, and probably because they're never going to cross paths with the person that they have crossed with, that it makes it easier for them to get away, because they essentially have for years and years and years. And it's a very sad reality.
It very much is a sad reality because, I mean, there are literally tens of thousands of hiding places up there. I mean, going into summertime, the traffic going up to Alaska, both Canadian and American people heading on up, plus all the tourists heading up to the Yukon and into Alberta on the east and going to see the ocean on the west. There is a lot of travel up there, a lot of people camping because it is so natural. It's a hunting area. There's a lot of guns in that area as well. You know, this is not turning into a debate on guns because we're pro-gun around here. All right. So the whole point that I am saying in regards to this is the fact that there are thousands of places for anybody to commit a crime without the police even knowing and not finding out for days. And this is kind of what we are seeing happening.
Well, yeah, it makes it very, 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 very difficult for the police to solve some of these cases. And then when you think about certain remote communities, you know, there's also, especially in years ago, the relationship between First Nations and the RCMP was not, well, to say the least, was not great. There's been a lot of concerted efforts from, you know, the government top and bottom and through the RCMP to have, you know, Indigenous police officers and investigators and a lot of community outreach to try to turn the page on history and rewrite it in a positive manner. But it still doesn't change the fact that these types of murders, just like the ones that just happened, are, as you say, in very remote areas. You can go for miles, or in this case in Canada, for kilometers on end, without crossing paths with somebody, especially if you're off the side of the highway on an off-road. And it makes it extremely difficult for some of these police officers to solve those cases. And, you know, for me, who's grown quite attached to numerous families and communities up here in the north, it makes it very hard when you continue to hear about cases of missing family members or family members turning up murdered.
Dozens of young women have been murdered along this trail. You said you were hesitant to use the term serial killer. Why is that? Well, you know, in finishing up the documentary, when we were trying to finalize the edit, there was obviously the case of Bobby Jack Fowler that
came out. And, we did study the Robert Picton case fairly closely as well, and all the victims that came out of that. And I think it is tough because a lot of these cases are unsolved, and I'm definitely not an investigative specialist, so it's a little bit hard to use that term when we really don't know a lot of the hard facts. And that's something that obviously the RCMP, for reasons of ongoing investigations, have not released a lot of information, so it makes it very difficult to figure out. I mean, there are certain graphs, and, you can try to talk to various specialists to see if there are certain patterns. And, from what I was reading in recent days and speaking to people, especially with what's happened recently, it's interesting, behavioral patterns of how they function and why these happen. And so I think the serial killer aspect is still a little bit tough to throw around, because for me, a lot of what had to do with the murders up north is not just murderers, for lack of better terms. It also, there's a lot of generational and systemic issues that were leading to putting these women and girls in vulnerable situations that they couldn't get out of.
Do you think that a lot of this may be connected to the indigenous communities themselves? Kind of like their dirty little secret.
It is. I wouldn't necessarily put it in those terms, but it is hard because some of these communities, I think communication is a tough factor to play with. And it's mainly in some of these communities, if something does happen, it's hard for anybody to go to a police officer or to go to somebody within the community, because they do have to live there, and in a lot of these communities there's not that many people. So I think it's sometimes being caught between a rock and a hard place. And certainly you do have families that are very vocal, not just in their communities, but all across the country, doing everything they can within their power to try to bring justice for their loved one or to find them. And that makes it difficult. But just like with everything, whether it's within their communities, I would say you have a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm. Matt Smiley is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He is the director of the Highway of Tears documentary. You can find it at highwayoftearsfilm.com. Highly suggest you do. It's an award-winning production. Matt, in regards to the First Nations communities, these women that are going missing, what are some of the similarities over the years that these young ladies have had?
I mean, a lot of the similarities, which is something that was and is now shifting as far as how the media covers it, but what was initially being pegged as high-risk individuals, and it relates to being in a remote area, not necessarily having the resources to leave that area. And with regards to the Highway of Tears specifically, a lot of it had to do, with hitchhiking or trying to travel from one area to another, long distances, sometimes in the hundreds of kilometers. And because they can't leave, if it's to go see a doctor or to go get services within, a city hub, they'd put themselves at risk with a complete stranger in a car in the middle of nowhere with nobody really to contact.
Mm-hmm. And up there, it's so remote.
poverty definitely played a very strong role in a lot of this, because it's, if you had the means to get a driver's license, if you had the means to have a car, if you had the means to leave your community with a friend or with a bus service, which they're now really starting to have, you eliminate chances of danger, because, no matter where you live in this world, it's sad to think that a lot of people do not have the best of intentions, and there's a lot of evil people out there.
And let's face it, I mean, not to sound sadistic or anything along those lines, but if you want to get away with murder, it's the perfect place to do that, because there's not a lot of cell phone service. There's a lot of room in between communities. We're talking tens of miles, sometimes hundreds of miles in between communities. There is not a lot going up there that's going on that if you needed to disappear or you needed communication, you couldn't get it. I mean, the entire process of murdering one of these women, which is horrific, it really is a killer's paradise up there, because the odds are in their favor that they're going to get away.
I mean, sadly, I agree with you, because the statistics are there. Obviously, awareness has gotten a lot better. I think a lot of communities in the north have tried to curtail this by trying to ensure that there's proper bus routes, that there's proper education. A lot of the communities up here, especially with their with regards to education and educating their youth about not getting into cars with strangers, about telling people where they're going, I think has gotten better. There's various organizations that are doing a lot of work to increase that awareness. And I think now, even with regards to the most recent tragic case with the individuals that were murdered, is that there's a lot more cameras in the area. Even though there's a lot of distances, technology is starting to catch up, where I think hopefully within the next couple of years, there'll be definitely ways of tracking where specific people were at certain moments. But obviously in the north, it's very, very hard.
Matt, is there a solution to all of this? Is there a way that this level of distrust of what's gone on in this case between the Indigenous First Nations and the RCMP and the public in general can be repaired at this time, as everybody still searches for the killer or killers?
I think I'm always hopeful, but I think sadly, as we've seen anywhere else in the world, there are always domestic disputes. There will always be racism. I think racism is always plays a very strong role with regards to hatred. It's something that I wish didn't exist, and I think with regards to Indigenous culture, I think Canada in particular is starting to embrace Indigenous culture, starting to understand it. Hopefully in more schools we'll pick up more curriculums that will focus on the tarnished history between Canada and the Indigenous population. But more so than that, I think it's how interconnected we all are. And I think, as much as technology in one form is probably destroying our actual human interactions, it's definitely making us much more interconnected, where if something happens to somebody on one edge of the planet, there's an entire world population that can somewhat investigate it or feel the pain that these family members feel, and push for justice. And I think there's a lot of pressure right now on the RCMP to act quickly, to act swiftly, not only to solve this most recent case in the quickest way possible, because I think, with a lot of these cases, as you probably know from doing your show for so long, is that, the first 48 hours are extremely critical in getting as much information as possible. That, I remain hopeful that hopefully they can solve this case and track down whoever is responsible, whether it's 1, 2, 3 people, and bring them to justice. But also, hopefully, because there is renewed interest, sadly, that it refocuses on family members that have been missing loved ones for 10, 20, and 30 years that have still no answers and no sketches or leads on what happened to their, daughters, nieces, cousins, friends.
Very understandable. And so we got about 90 seconds left before we go to break. This has affected so many families from across the province and right across the country, of this being, these First Nations women really being a focal point on going missing. In the Highway of Tears, have all the women been First Nations, or have there been other Caucasians or other races that have been taken as well?
It's certainly not been all First Nations women and girls. There's definitely Caucasian women and girls that have been, for lack of better terms, grouped into, if we're speaking specifically with regards to the Highway of Tears cases. And I know there was one case in particular that for me was somewhat of a touchy subject to include in the film, but it was also the case of, Madison Scott that was just outside of Vanderhoof in British Columbia as well, where she's not an Indigenous girl. But I think a lot of, to me, it was in that tragedy, I think a lot of the Indigenous First Nations population, I think we're a little bit saddened that her case did get a lot of attention.
Matt, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to step out for a break here. Matt Smiley continues to talk about the Highway of Tears in Hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio right after this.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is Watching.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com. Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Hey fans, it's Dave Scott. Do I have something for you to check out? A great documentary about legendary Mexican investigative journalist Jaime Maussan and his search for the truth about UFOs. Beyond the Spectrum, Maussan's UFO files can be found on Amazon Prime. It's free to watch if you're a member. You might even hear me in it. So check out Beyond the Spectrum, only on Amazon Prime. The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacey, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us on this Monday night, early Tuesday morning. We want to say hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates in Dangerfield, Texas, KDNF, AM 1560, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia. In New Orleans, UPRN 107.7 FM, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, and down in Ridgecrest, California, KZFX 93.7 FM. On the digital side, we're proud to represent Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Good to have you with us. Don't forget to check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Desiggate. Desiggate is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the Gavinator will soon have a plethora of features for you. But right now, you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and listen to the show live as well. We are talking about the Highway of Tears, a very, very long highway stretch in British Columbia that has led to more than 60-plus murders and missing women, mostly of the Indigenous First Nations. Tonight, director of Highway of Tears documentary, Matt Smiley, is with us. You can find his film at highwayoftearsfilm.com if you want to check it out. We highly suggest you do. Matt, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
Matt, in everything you have learned about this case, what do you think we're missing?
That's a great question, and I don't think I've learned the answer yet. I think I'm still searching for it. Because the one thing I have a hard time understanding is how, human beings can kill each other, or the desire for certain people to commit murder. There's certain murders that I understand on an educated level, where there's domestic disagreements or disagreements within friends where things get very heated, or, chemical imbalances, or, things that are drug-related. But there's something very weird and morbid and sad that there are predators out there that are searching for victims and without really there being a reason. And I think with a lot of families, whether they find out what happened to their loved one or who did it, the question as to why, I'm never sure if it really brings much solace to them.
That is a difficult one. That is very much the difficult one that we are trying to figure out. Do you think even the police or First Nations know?
I'm sure that there are a lot of cases out there where people do know the answers, and it was less so while I was filming the documentary, but I think once I started to travel with the film and started to do Q&As and started to meet a lot of people, when you go from city to city to city, and people would come up to you after the screenings and tell you, what happened within their specific families or what happened within their communities. And they would tell you, I think there's a person within our community that could be doing this. A lot of people are governed with a lot of fear. And, for me, that it was a big element as to why is this happening. But I think the more that people talk about it, and I think it's why I still continue to this day. I never thought that it would become a lifelong mission to continue to champion for answers, because I still, on a weekly basis, touch base with various family members across the country. I still hear that pain that they have. There's such a sadness there, and to talk to, mothers or fathers or brothers and sisters and cousins, people that have walked across the country numerous times, led by, leaders within their communities. I had the pleasure of rekindling and seeing a dear friend of mine that I met through the Highway of Tears process was Gladys Raddick at the National Inquiry closing, and I saw her war pony that she had parked outside of the National History Museum, and she's had various incarnations of that same car. But when you see a car with taped up photos of family members that Gladys has had on there, and lives and breathes and wakes up in the morning, and it's not to say it's not a job for her. It's a mission. She feels it inside of her, because she feels that pain, because she is a family member, and I think there's no worse feeling than not knowing what's happened to a loved one. And I think for me, it's I share that similar passion, and I think that passion is led by a sadness for people that are really grieving, and we do have these types of stories all over the planet. I think you had asked earlier on in our talk, is there a solution? I think that's a really hard answer to give, because I think if there was, we would definitely be working towards it fairly quickly. And the sad part is that these types of murders and disappearances happen all over the globe.
Matt, in regards to the stories that you have heard, and we're going to get to some audience questions right after this, when you had your sit-downs with some of these family members who have lost loved ones, whether it's daughters, granddaughters, cousins, sisters, aunts, whatever it may be. Is there a story you could share with us and the audience that maybe really set you back, that maybe hit you right in the heart?
I think, there's so many. And there's one particular family that I had grown fairly close to, or one particular person that was interviewed in the documentary, that they had lost their mother on the downtown east side, and they were also within the head of their community up here in the north. And I think one of the saddest days for me in working on the Highway of Tears cases and the film was having formed a friendship, a working relationship with one of these individuals, and then having, another family member while I was finishing the film, which is Immaculate Basil, who went missing. I was fairly close to her family, who had participated in the film and I had spoken to on numerous occasions, where they really are friends of mine. But it was through this film process, and to be going through the film process and to have another family member and a young 27-year-old woman that has a whole life ahead of her. It just I do remember being in the editing room where I was working and just broke down in tears, because I just you feel for it, and it almost, because I've spent so much time also trying to study these cases and obviously growing close to family members, that it's hard not to take it personally. And I do remember that case in particular really hitting me, because you know exactly what happens to the family members. And I do remember trying to call the RCMP and trying to find out what was happening, and also knowing, some of the RCMP officers and investigators fairly well, and knowing that, they did send people out, and it's so hard. Part of it was, I wish I was an investigator as well, but what more can we do? I wish there were more people out of the tech sector that could find a way to solve some of these murders.
Let's get to some audience questions now, if you don't mind. Let's start off with Renee in the SOR in the Spreaker chat here, and she is asking, did I hear this correct? They have not found bodies, but these people are missing. How many are missing approximately?
That's an excellent question. So thank you for that. When we first started working on the documentary project, our focus was in northern British Columbia, and predominantly, obviously, the Highway of Tears cases, which was 18 missing and murdered cases. That number is definitely much closer to 40, and now rising, obviously. But the big kicker was, throughout this process of releasing the film and various other news organizations, and the tireless work of a lot of organizations, like there's the Highway of Tears Foundation, there's various other grassroots organizations across the country that have been doing so much work to compile the actual number of missing and murdered women. When we screened in 2014 at the TIFF Human Rights Watch Film Festival in Toronto, it was roughly 600 missing and murdered Indigenous women across the country. Since launching a national public inquiry across the country into the missing and murdered women that Trudeau's government did push forward and allocated funds to really finding the root causes of what's happening, but mainly hearing out the stories of the family members. We're now at over 4,000 women and girls across the country.
Incredible. That is a small town in Canada's population. That's more women than where I live in population.
Yeah, and when you think about it, it's somebody's daughter, it's somebody's mother, it's a cousin, it's a best friend, and these disappearances and murders really, really destroy communities.
I can see that. I can absolutely see that. Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Michael. Are all the missing people along the same highway, or are there other highways involved?
There's obviously various highways involved, but the three that have been the focus of the RCMP's EPEN investigation was really focused on highways 97, 5, and obviously the infamous Highway 16 in northern British Columbia.
Yeah, and that stretches literally right across the northern part of the province. I mean, it's, I believe it's 765 kilometers or something along those lines. I apologize, I don't know the translation into miles. Let me just punch that up.
Roughly
here
500.
Yeah, it's about 475 miles is what it is.
Yeah.
And, but there's a lot of other things out there, too, though, that kind of leads to another question from the audience here. All right, and I believe this was Uncle Dale who was asking this. How do we know that all of these are murders and not caused by animals? Because up in that area, there are a lot of grizzly bears. There's cougars. There's black bears. There's giant 2,000-pound moose. There's wolves. There's coyotes. There's cougars and all sorts of big cats around there. There's a lot of animals up there that could kill these women. And if they're walking along the highway, especially in dusk, which is prime hunting time, how do we know a lot of these women have not been used as food?
I mean, there is always that possibility, and the RCMP has also spoken about various other methods that women might have, how they might have gone missing or been murdered. But that being said, there is quite a bit of evidence with regards to, even if, articles of clothing had been found, that it clearly wasn't done, by animals. But it is, with regards to, if you study some of the RCMP cases, there's quite a lot, whether I agree or disagree with them. There was a predominant amount of numbers related to drownings. And, it is possible that going through the woods with the bears and animals, but I think with regards to a lot of these cases, most of them, it is human-related, and, I think there's enough of evidence pointing towards some form of malicious intent.
We got about 3.5 minutes here before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. Our guest tonight is Matt Smiley, director of the documentary film Highway of Tears. It can be found at highwayoftearsfilm.com. Mark has a question in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Mark is one of the very valued truckers who listens to Spaced Out Radio while he is driving. So thank you, Mark, for tuning us in. Really appreciate you joining in the SOR Space Travelers Club as well. Mark is asking, does it appear that these predators pick less capable neighborhoods? So I guess what he's saying is, I mean, there is a lot of the unemployment in these areas. There's not a lot of jobs. There's a lot of poor folk in this area and these communities.
Well, it's an excellent question, and we did talk about it a little bit earlier, is that, poverty does play a very large role into that. And it is, when you don't have the means, and it's not even just that, it's obviously if you don't have the means to get from point A to point B, there are a lot of risks involved in getting into a car. And from some of the cases that I've studied, and I'm by no means an expert, but I definitely have spoken to a lot of law enforcement officials, investigators, families, studied a lot of these cases, studied the behavior behind them. And the main thing is while somebody might not have had those malicious intents when they had picked up an individual, there's something that happened, and obviously on more than one occasion, where that individual turned from being a helping hand to becoming vicious very quickly, and that's something that's very scary to think about. And I think it very much has to do with the more that it happens, and especially in people not talking about it, that there are certainly murderers out there that thought that they can get away with it because in previous years and throughout history, a lot of Indigenous women were considered expendable. And I think we're slowly pushing that, and if not forcing it in the other direction, where Canada is realizing and paying attention that these women and this population is extremely important to not only our country but to the world, because it ties into everything else as far as love of culture, love of our love of the land and nature, and with each person that goes missing or gets murdered, we lose a lot of that. And so poverty it plays into it. It's preying on a vulnerable population.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My friend, I'm going to get you to hold on here as we're going to go to break at the bottom of the hour. We're at the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio talking about the Highway of Tears in northern British Columbia, Canada. More questions. Trip, your questions are up next from the Spreaker chat. We're going to continue on with Matt Smiley here right after this. Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch.
Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thaw, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We've passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting with you, chattering away at SOR headquarters in the frozen Canadian tundra. Welcome to each and every one of you. Reminder that if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can always reach out to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the Gavinator will have new features coming very, very soon. But for now, you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and listen to the show live. Big hello to Gene in D.C. Yes, Gene in D.C. How you doing? Thank you for listening tonight. Give us a call sometime, will you? We'd appreciate that. Tonight we are talking with Matt Smiley. He is the director of the documentary film Highway of Tears. Highwayoftearsfilm.com is his website. Matt, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get right back to audience questions here, if you don't mind. And this comes from Trip. And it's in regards to the RCMP. And Trip, I'll answer your third question there, that how many cameras are on the roads up there. There's none. There is absolutely no cameras. But he is asking you, Matt, how often in your conversations with the RCMP are they traveling these highways and doing stop and checks on vehicles just for the sake of doing them?
Well, in recent years, especially in the last 2-3 years, there's a lot more awareness, especially within the highway and with social media as well, that it's not just the RCMP, but community members that are much more vigilant about cars that are pulled over to the side of the road, cars that are going down logging roads, and of course, the RCMP, within the resources that they have, are patrolling those highways. That being said, what we talked about, we're talking about such a vast territory that I think it's not just, man or women power on the streets patrolling in their police cars. But I think, to me, it's a call out to the tech world, is how do you keep women, girls, and young men from communities where they are in a vulnerable situation, where they will be prone to hitchhiking if there is no buses available, which now there are more. But is a sense of, and it's a fine line, how much surveillance can you have over people, and how much is enough to keep people safe, but also keep others' lives private without, government spying, essentially.
Gail is wondering about the Canadian government. What is their thoughts on this?
Well, I think the government's taking it seriously, and I think all my conversations with members of Parliament across the board has been to try to understand why this is happening. Obviously, the National Inquiry brought out a lot of questions. There's a lot of recommendations on what can be done. You know, there was a report that was handed to the Prime Minister of the country, and then there's a lot of people that are going to have to be held accountable as to what the next steps are to ensure that, you know, there's resources available for prevention, because we're talking about a lot of road, and the best way to protect people is to have prevention and education and resources.
Mm-hmm. And this is also something I can say as a Canadian citizen. You know, people want answers to this. They want to know what is going on, why these women, doesn't matter what their culture is, are being taken. Why them? You know, why haven't the police done anything about this? Why haven't they got the murderers? Why is it taking the RCMP so long? I mean, their motto is, we always get our man. You know, well, you haven't got your killers yet. And I could sense that level of frustration in the population as well.
I mean, there's definitely a level of frustration, and now I do think with these new cases that have just happened in the last week, I think there's a renewed pressure for them to use all the necessary resources to figure out what happened, why it happened, and try to bring that case or those cases to justice in a very quick and swift manner. But that being said, if they can do it because it is fresh, and they do have some leads from what I understand in the limited information that I have on it, is that hopefully that also sparks some renewed international interest in people putting pressure on the RCMP to try to solve some of these older cases that lack the news cycle push.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't think the way this has kind of got out of hand, especially after the Robert Pickton case, I think the public has really had enough of the game playing. Like, let's go. The public wants answers. Would you agree with that as well?
I think the public definitely wants answers, but I think more so than the public, I think the family members, definitely the direct family members, want answers. I think they deserve answers. And I think it's, you know, the RCMP and the investigators also have a very hard mandate, because there's also, in a lot of cases, they're not working with a lot of information to run on.
Why are clues so sparse to find?
Well, I think the biggest factor, especially with regards to Highway Tears cases, is it just comes down to territory and the vast expanse of it. And I think you touched on it earlier. If we're talking some of these remote locations, with whatever might have happened to some of these young women and girls, is they are or would end up in the woods. And then once they are there in a remote location, there are animals and also just natural environments that do change. And we have pretty aggressive winters up in the north as well. So it's, I think, a variety of factors that make it very, very, very hard. I've gone up and done some of those remain searches within certain cases, and when you have the grass and all the shrubbage, foliage that grows very, very quickly, inches and inches within just a few short months, it makes it very hard to solve cases like that.
Matt Smiley is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio, talking the Highway of Tears. Matt, I'm going to throw a little bit of woo at you right now. All right, because I have talked to a number of First Nations people regarding this theory. And up north near the Vanderhoof area, and as you take the highway more towards Alaska, there is a lot of people who believe in the First Nations community that not all, but maybe as high as 20 to 25% of the women who have been taken as Sasquatch wives. Now, I realize that in a serious topic like this, there's a lot of eye rolling that may go on in regards to this, but this isn't my question for making fun. This is what I have been told by about 3 or 4 different First Nations people who have had family members go missing. And the theory behind it is the RCMP will not check into this because they don't buy into the Sasquatch factor the way the First Nations people do. But the other theory behind this is the fact that a lot of these women who went missing were either pregnant, recently pregnant and had given birth, or on their menstruation cycle, which are all signs, according to First Nation legend, that attract Sasquatch. Have you heard in your time of talking to many of the First Nations anything about this?
No, none.
So in hearing that, as somebody who has looked at this strictly as a true crime type case, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, since it hasn't really come up, that's definitely not something that I can comment on for sure.
Oh, come on. Give us something. Give us something. You don't believe it. It's okay if you don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't think that I can't comment on it just not knowing, not having had any conversation with regards to that's not something that I would be able to speak about.
Yeah, I can see where it is an uncomfortable question considering the severity of this. And that doesn't, and without sounding rude, that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. I was quite shocked about it when I heard this First Nations people tell me about this as well. And they're not saying that there isn't people being murdered up there. They're just saying that this has been brought up to RCMP, and the RCMP have basically waved it off, that they're not even looking into it, and that's part of the frustration they have with the investigation. But we can move on. Renee has a question for you here. Are the missing women disappearing during the daylight, night, or both?
Definitely all the time. It happens at all hours, sadly.
Isn't the majority of them in the evening, like just at dusk?
There's a lot of cases that are in broad daylight.
Really? That I didn't know.
Yeah.
That I did not. So in those cases where it's daylight, knowing the very little traffic, you'd think in daylight there might be more clues to license plates, types of vehicles. Are we seeing that?
Yeah, but I think when you can drive for miles on end and not see anybody, then it does make it very difficult for anybody to pinpoint a license plate. But I think in the case of the most recent cases here up north, they do have video now of at least the car of the victims, that they can start to pinpoint their trajectory and maybe start to piece together who might have been in the area. So obviously modern technology is helping there, and sure, the fact that it's happened, I'm not saying that necessarily happened during the daylight, but I'm sure it would help.
I think so, too. Have there ever been any vigilante groups that you know of that have tried to set up some sort of pickup to try and catch these people? Was that ever brought up?
No, aside from maybe family members that are angry and really want to go door to door and go through their entire communities and find out if it could be somebody within their communities. There's sure people that, there's always speculations as to who could be involved. So in that case, yes. Has that amounted to anything? Not necessarily any specific cases.
So with that, you would think that with that amount of highway that there would be some sort of vigilante type group that is patrolling to maybe help out the police, or have the police, who are never really in favor of vigilantism, have they kind of quelled that from happening?
I think for people to act in a vigilante method is probably not the best conduct. I definitely understand it, and can definitely understand a family member or anybody for that matter wanting to bring the people responsible to justice. But obviously there are rules and laws, and I think we have to entrust the law enforcement, whether or not, a lot of people agree with whether they're doing enough. Sometimes they don't have all the information that they need. But I think they're there and doing a job that they're passionate about, that it's not necessarily up to people to take the laws into their own hands, because that probably creates a whole other set of issues.
A lot of these women who have been taken have been subject to violent lives, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's physical abuse at the hands of their own families, people on their reservations. Maybe it had to do with residential schools back in the day. Did that play a role, or do you think that's played a role in these women running away, trying to get away from that type of life?
There's certainly a level of vulnerability. A lot of the cases is young women that were in vulnerable situations, and that comes down to some of the systemic issues that I mentioned earlier on in the show. Is you have systemic racism, you have generational poverty. And I think those play a very large factor in putting them in a situation where they didn't have the tools to get them out of a situation where they were put into danger.
Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the reserves have their own police forces and their own groups that protect the land. Have they worked closely with the RCMP to maybe try and put some of these puzzle pieces together?
There's certainly a lot of coordination and effort being done on all different levels, as far as information sharing, tip lines, Facebook groups that have been created. all in an effort to find loved ones, or even if it's walks, is just keeping general awareness up. I think those all play a factor into doing that.
So with that, the RCMP, as far as you know, hasn't set up any sting operations, getting back to what we asked a little bit earlier.
Not that I know of, and I think the main thing is they've been very tight-lipped about how these investigations are conducted. I think there's also been a lot more pressure on them in recent years to perform, to find ways of trying to solve these cases. And, from that regard, there's a lot of information. I think in some cases where they've trickled out a little bit of information to see if it'll help solve some of their cases, but to date, I think it's proved very, very hard.
We've got about 90 seconds here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. We'll get to one more question here from Renee. She is asking, why would the Mounties not do a sting op with this? I mean, I know we just kind of asked that in a roundabout way, but you think that the police would be a little bit more creative in trying to find whomever is causing this? Or is it because they don't have enough manpower? I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, people kind power up there in regards to the amount of officers that are there, that there just isn't the amount of Mounties to accomplish anything like that because the area is so vast?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a very technical question as far as how they conduct their investigations, which I think gets a little bit tricky for me to answer, but I think having the resources to solve those cases, I think you are right. It gets very difficult with the resources that they have, especially given the vast territory.
It is. It really is. We only got about...
And it's also within certain communities they don't necessarily have full access to.
That is true. That is true. And some of these reservations, for our listeners, they are in the middle of nowhere. They are miles from the highways, miles from any type of civilization. It is a nasty, nasty piece of area up there. It is a rough area. It's not very smooth. And it's something that we need to be able to check in with that and do a little bit of investigation there to see what is truly going on. Matt, I'm going to get you to hold on for the final time here as we are going to go to break at the top of the hour. Matt Smiley is our guest. We only got him for the next half hour. Then we got to say goodnight to him. Highway of Tears. We're talking about it. Big, big story here. Make sure you tune in for the last half hour with Matt. Then we get to the Thought of the Day and the SOR Newswire coming up in hour 3.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Canada's largest UFO conference is ready to roll in Toronto this September 21st and 22nd at the Alien Cosmic Expo. This year is about the experience. Listen to the stories of Dave Scott, Travis Walton, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Ryan Stacey, Richard Dolan, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and more. Get your tickets now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Hey fans, it's Dave Scott. Do I have something for you to check out? A great documentary about legendary Mexican investigative journalist Jaime Maussan and his search for the truth about UFOs. Beyond the Spectrum, Maussan's UFO files can be found on Amazon Prime. It's free to watch if you're a member. You might even hear me in it. So check out Beyond the Spectrum, only on Amazon Prime.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacey, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
From the mile-high mountains of Colorado to all of you around the world, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I invite you to stick around spacedoutradio.com for Saturday and Sunday nights where I host Spaced Out Weekend. Let me take you on a wild ride of weird and strange topics, from ghosts and ETs to remote viewing, psychic phenomena, and so much more. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time on Spaced Out Weekend, where we own the night.
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We welcome back everyone listening in on WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans, KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, KZFX 93.7 FM in Ridgecrest, California, and down in Reedsport, Oregon, KDUN AM 1030. On the digital side, hi to everyone listening in on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Great to have you with us. Remember, you can listen to all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Dzigade. Dzigade is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. You can also check out the show live. Soon, the Gavinator will have more features for you coming in the next few days. For the final time tonight, we introduce Matt Smiley. He is the director of the award-winning documentary film Highway of Tears. Highwayoftearsfilm.com is the website. I highly suggest you check out this film. It is absolutely amazing. Matt, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad you're here too, my friend. I want to get into a few more questions here for you. In the areas where this is happening on the Highway of Tears in northern British Columbia, which also connects to the Alaska Highway, is there any curfews that have been set, especially for women walking around the highways at night?
No particular set of curfews that I know about, but there's certainly been a lot more educational and community outreach in order for them not to put themselves into that situation.
So communities are forewarning their women now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. All right. In regards to the statistics that have been compiled over the years on this case, are there any patterns, like areas, the frequency it happens, that really stand out?
That was something that I had looked at one point or another as we were finalizing the edit on the film, and spoke to a couple of people with regards to patterns, and I think it's been something, there's certainly similarities that the RCMP have been tracking with regards to certain cases, which I think they've also kept quite secret from the general population for, I'm sure, various reasons. And but as far as I know, not being an expert, I couldn't really see any, aside from just they were all in remote areas and did suffer with regards to being, in areas that just made it very hard for them to travel.
Do you think that's because the RCMP has been so silent on this as not to tip off whom any of these potential suspects may be?
I think so. I think there's certainly many reasons why they haven't released information on that, and I think a lot of it is trying to figure out who within the community is being watched, and I truthfully hope that they're being watched, and I do hope that they find them.
All right, let's get to Renee's question here. She is saying, how can the people up there trust law enforcement when this has been happening for so long and it seems to never end?
Also a very valid question, and I think for many, many years there wasn't any trust within law enforcement. But as we've seen over the last couple of years, I do know that the RCMP has made a lot of efforts to try and change their organization. There's also various investigators and officers within the RCMP that are First Nation and Indigenous, and I think they are part of the community. They do make an effort to be there and support certain family members when they need it during their walks for awareness. Do I hear from various families that not enough information is being relayed to them? That is certainly the case. There's numerous families, but that's kind of a tough place for the RCMP to be in, as far as what cases can they focus on. And in some of these cases, they just really don't have any leads, which makes it difficult when you're a family member and or a friend or a distant relative that really wants answers for a missing loved one.
Nikki is asking about the forensics. Have you had the opportunity to talk to any forensics officers in regards to this case regarding some of the tips or clues, or are they buttoned up as well?
Forensics are yeah. There's not much information that's been released on that end.
That's kind of weird. You think that they would be a little bit more forthcoming on that, unless they know who is doing this, but they just don't have the inside track or the proper information to actually press charges.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that it's probably very close to that, and it makes it very difficult for them to solve the cases. And I think that's also adds to the big mystery surrounding these is how and when these cases are going to be solved. And I would hope, for the sake of a lot of family members, that closure comes fast and not a long road that spans several years.
For the women who have been found deceased, was there any type of sexual abuse that was found on the bodies?
Yeah, there's certainly a couple of cases that can be tracked down online. That was a focus of mine in the documentary, not necessarily to focus on those elements. The focus wasn't necessarily on revealing those types of facts, but yes, absolutely, there are various cases, not even just the ones related to the Highway of Tears, that do have a lot of that in them, for sure.
So we're not only dealing with a potential murderer or potential serial killer, but we're dealing with a sexual predator as well, or predators.
Absolutely. And I mean, even if you look at cases like the Robert Pickton victims, there's definitely similar patterns in a lot of the other cases across the country, sadly.
Definitely there is. How big of a problem is this right across Canada? We know the numbers of the women that have gone missing throughout. But are we looking at a situation here where there's a lot of copycat murders, or just that many types of predators that are spread out across Canada who are taking advantage of these women in remote areas?
I definitely think it's predators by opportunity that are taking advantage of certain situations. I think because of the heightened awareness, I think that window for them to get away with crimes like this is, I believe, tightening. I think there's hopefully a concerted effort from various communities to find out what's happening and to look for signs of danger, and mainly as informing their community members to be hyper vigilant, because this is a reality. And a young girl growing up in a community up north is certainly much more informed than they were 10, 15 years ago about the dangers of getting into a car with a stranger, of what can happen.
And that's really the point now, is I guess we are at that education point where these young ladies have to realize there is complete danger in what they are doing and where they are going, especially if they plan on hitchhiking, catching a ride with a complete stranger. They don't know.
Yeah, and I think that is a 100% known fact, is if you get into a car with a stranger and nobody knows about it, that individual is putting themselves in a very, very dangerous position, and I think that is very well documented, and I think starting to work. And I think that education, and that comes down to even after we finished the documentary film, the RCMP even used it as a tool, and they worked in communities and worked with various individuals from the communities to help raise awareness. And I think part of that policing effort is, if they can't solve some of these cases, they're definitely doing the work and trying to prevent them from happening again. But that's definitely led by grassroots initiatives by various organizations to put pressure on them to do that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you. A lot of these reserves up there in First Nations communities, then, they have set up these educational programs for the children coming up?
Yes, they absolutely do. And I know one of the organizations that we worked really closely with towards the end of the Highway of Tears project was Carrier Sakani Family Services, and they're the ones that were very much spearheading when they did launch an inquiry into the missing and murdered women up here in the north. When they formed the first inquiry, which led to the recommendations. Their education of people in the North, I think, is certainly quite helpful.
With the fact that we see a lot of these education programs now coming, I guess a lot of these children, let's say from the age of childhood, maybe 5, 6, 7, up until in their, I guess they'd be in their early 20s now, maybe even a little bit older, they've probably lost family members, if not mothers or sisters, in regards to these cases. Have the communities, knowing that this is a major problem for the last number of decades, started seeing success in the amount of women that are going missing?
I certainly think, I mean, it's a hard way to define success because there's obviously still cases that arise, but certainly the awareness, I think, countrywide is there. And I think organizations like APTN and CBC, the Indigenous sections have done everything that they can to bring light and humanize these stories so the general population can know what's happening, and also educate not just Indigenous women, girls, and young men, but the rest of the population about taking proper safety precautions.
Well, hopefully we are starting to see those numbers go down statistic-wise. But, I mean, after this week, seeing that 2 people are missing, 2 people are dead, I mean, I think we also have to take a look at the fact that in a lot of these remote areas, yes, there are RCMP detachments, but they may not have a lot of members. Like you may have, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 square miles of area to cover, and you may only have 2, 4, 6 officers stationed in that entire region. So, I mean, it is a battle with manpower as well.
Yeah, I think resources definitely play a part in it. And I know a lot of the officers with regards to the investigations aren't necessarily stationed in the North. So it does make it somewhat difficult to solve some of these cases.
Now, if I'm correct, there isn't a lot of cell phone service in those areas either. So even if the young women are carrying a cell phone over the last 20 years, by the time something happens, there's just no way that they are able to make an emergency 911 call.
Cell service in the North has gotten better. But it is true, there are definitely a lot of areas that do not have proper coverage. So it does lead to risky situations, and that could be said for just about anybody as well.
Did any of the First Nations people that you talked to have any solutions or theories as to what is happening or who is taking these women?
I mean, as far as solutions, there have been various recommendations that have been put forth. And then also with regards to the closing of the National Inquiry, there were over 200 recommendations that were put forth to the Prime Minister. So I think it's now everybody reassessing, looking at those and working collectively from coast to coast, and figuring out how to keep, women and children and young girls safe.
So in some of those theories that you heard from people, do they believe that it is an American traveling from Alaska, maybe a truck driver, or maybe a Canadian truck driver, or is it somebody from a fellow First Nations community who's just sick in the head? What's some of those theories?
As far as the theories, I think, and I'm sure your listeners will agree with regards to probably a lot of the research that they compile and listen to, is there are so many, and because each case is kind of different. And I think the one thing, the straw that kind of ties them all together is essentially the remoteness of it makes it very difficult to solve these cases. And I think it's also the fact that these, from what I've said numerous times, is that it's predators by opportunity. So it's generally people that wouldn't normally commit these types of crimes, but end up doing it, which makes it so difficult to solve.
We only got about 2.5 minutes left with you tonight. I want to sneak in one more question from Maureen on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. She is asking, are there a lot of signs up and down the highways reminding people about the dangers?
There are. There's a few signs. There's two famous ones, and I think they actually did, if I'm not mistaken, just recently removed a wording on the sign that said "Killer on the Loose."
Interesting. Very interesting. And let's also not forget, right across Canada there is the red dress movement too, where people, especially women, are putting up red dresses in support of the missing Indigenous women and women who've gone missing along the Highway of Tears as a show of support as well, which is great that people are taking notice in some sort of drive like that.
Absolutely. I think the Red Dress campaign was brilliant at raising awareness. I also thought there was another campaign, Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, where men were walking in high heels, and I think during that entire walk is really thinking about the women. And I thought symbolically it was very powerful, and I think there's an image of some RCMP officers walking with the community members, also in women's shoes, and I think the imagery of it, and I think symbolically was very, very powerful. And I think a lot of these grassroots campaigns, like even one that was featured in the documentary that I hold quite dear to my heart as well, is the Moosehide campaign, and that really turns its focus onto men and our role in all of that, in terms of being of leading by example and kind of assessing in the way that women are treated and protected.
Absolutely. Matt Smiley, I want to say thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you for informing our audience about this highly important topic. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave, and thank you for having me, and look forward to chatting again sometime soon.
Absolutely. HighwayOfTearsFilm.com is the website for Matt Smiley's documentary. Coming up next, we got the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. to SOR Space Travelers only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you will be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot THAL, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio listeners, it's Dave Scott. I want you to check out a great documentary I'm involved in called Beyond the Spectrum, Mosson's UFO Files. Directed by Darcy Weir, the film follows Jaime Mosson's journey for mainstream journalistic truth in ufology in Mexico. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon Prime. If you're a member, watch it free. It's worth the watch. Come get spooked at the 4th Annual Forest Moon Paracon in Cedar-Woolley, Washington, Saturday, September 28th. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. Speakers include Mike Morin and Jason Jordan, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and so much more. There will be workshops and a VIP roundtable. Get early bird tickets now at fmparacon.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch. Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today. Coming up this September 21st and 22nd, all UFO eyes will be focused on Toronto for the 4th Annual Alien Cosmic Expo. Come listen to some of the biggest names and experiencers in ufology. Travis Walton, Paul Hellyer, Richard Dolan, Paula Harris, Grant Cameron, Randy Kramer, and Spaced Out Radio's own Dave Scott. Tickets are on sale now at aliencosmicexpo.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
Looking for the stories of the strange and weird that you will find hard to find anywhere else? Check out the SOR Newswire on our website. Our writers, led by Captain Shirk, are scouring the world for the oddest and most bizarre stories we can find. Everything from weird crime to suspenseful and paranormal. We're working hard for you to bring you the most intriguing news of your day. Check out the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time. Reminder that if you've missed most of this show or others, you could always listen to them again on our archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. And of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com, where the Gavinator will have new features coming very, very shortly here. Probably in the next few days. I'm looking forward to it. But until then, you can read up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire and listen to the show live. Let's get to the news of the night. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire, the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the wild, sometimes wacky. We're going to start off here in British Columbia because police are looking into this mystery of a blue van that looks to have a rear view window shot out. The beat-up Chevy minivan that was, kind of being driven around by a murdered Australian backpacker and his American girlfriend has been pictured with a blown-out back window. Lucas Fowler, 24 years old, China Deese, 23, were shot dead by a mystery gunman a week ago, and now photographs emerged of their vehicle after it was seized by police. Who exactly killed them is still unknown, but Mrs. Deese's family has been told the injuries were so grisly that there is absolutely no way that they could have an open casket funeral for their daughter. The damaged van was photographed by police in a parking lot on Monday as witnesses came forward to tell their final encounters with the tragic couple, including a sliding doors moment that could have changed everything. Yeah, very, very scary in regards to this. They were heading home along the Alaskan Highway after visiting Liard Hot Springs on Sunday when they saw Mr. Fowler and Mrs. Deese's van broken down on the side of the road. And one of the guys who saw them was a mechanic, presumed they needed help and pulled over. He said the couple were relaxing out on fold-out chairs on the side of the road and were happy and smiling despite the circumstances. It's like they were having a little bit of lunch. Yes, days later, he had heard that unfortunately, they were dead. Very, very scary story indeed. Now, there's a little bit more to add to this, because with 3 suspicious deaths and the disappearance of 2 teenagers, which has taken place over the last week up north here in British Columbia, police have a little bit of a detailed sketch of whom the suspect may be. Now, this is a gentleman where the best-known feature is that he has a beard and a mustache. Well, that eliminates not too many people up north, right? Now, at a press conference earlier today, representatives of the RCMP said the 2 cases between the missing teenagers and the double murder may be linked, despite earlier assurances that there was nothing to indicate the 2 were connected, because they literally happened some 500 kilometers apart, or about 350 miles. So, a bearded man was seen talking to Lucas Fowler on the side of the highway last week, and that has emerged as a key to solving this mystery. Police released a composite sketch of the man, who they described as Caucasian with darker skin and hair. He was driving an older model Jeep Grand Cherokee with a black stripe on the hood. He was shorter than Lucas, who stood 6'3", and has possible beard and glasses. Fowler and Deese, of course, literally wound up dead, as we just told you. And now there are 2 teenagers from the town of Port Alberni, British Columbia, who were fishing up near Dease Lake, who have gone missing as well. Cam McLeod, 19 years old. Briar Schmigletsky, who is 18. Yeah, nobody knows how they vanished. Their truck was discovered, though, in flames near the town. The youth had been traveling to Whitehorse in the Yukon in search of work, doing some fishing along the way. Their families are hoping that they are still alive, saying we're certainly investigating them as missing persons, and we're hopeful that they will get in touch with us when they see this press conference. Scary times up north here. Scary times. Sad news in the field of ufology and the paranormal, as it was announced today that last week on Thursday, the 18th, famed writer and researcher Rosemary Ellen Guiley passed away. She had authored and compiled nearly 65 books in the Fate Present series, which included her newest title, just released earlier this year, called Planet Bigfoot. Now, she was also very well known for her research into the Jinn. She was 69 years of age, the best-selling author, researcher, and investigator. Yeah, she got into everything. It was the paranormal, metaphysical, which included haunting, psychic skills and protection, afterlife study and spirit communication, cryptids, alien contact, interdimensional aspects of our extraordinary experiences. She was best known for her spirituality and writing about the occult. She received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Upper Peninsula Paranormal Research Society in Michigan. Guiley was on the board of the Paranormal Romance Guild, which serves the romance fiction industry. She served on the boards of various organizations to consciousness studies and alien contact, including the free organization set up by Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the late Apollo astronaut, 6th man to walk on the moon. Yes, she was also a certified hypnotherapist and part of the International Hypnosis Federation. It has not been released how she passed away, just that she passed away very suddenly on Thursday, and she will be missed by many, many people in the community. So, you know the whole storming of Area 51? Well, I got to tell you, this is something that we can all get behind. The Oklahoma City Animal Welfare Shelter has set up a new way to get animals adopted. Yeah. They are inviting everybody on their social media to storm pet shelters around the world. And they've been sharing very, very cute photos of dogs and cats wearing tinfoil hats to protect against aliens, of course. Adoption isn't that far out of this world, the shelter wrote on its Facebook page. oh, these animals are adorable. So if you go on Facebook, OKC Animal Welfare, oh, you got to see some of these. I mean, talk about being creative in trying to help get some of these lovely, lovely animals their forever homes. What a great way to do it. What a great way to do it. So, of course, this is all in combination with the Facebook group about Storm Area 51 that says, let's see them aliens. They can't stop all of us. How many of you out there have really been practicing your Naruto running? Just out of curiosity. So, yes, there are lots of animals that could be adopted here. Let's try and get that happening. Try and get that happening. You know, instead of storming Area 51, if you're one of the 3 million who are either saying you're going or interested, how about storming your local animal shelter? Take home a new pet. You'll get much more satisfaction out of it. That is for sure. All right, moving on. So, remember a few years ago when Apollo astronaut Buzz Aldrin punched that guy in the face who said the moon landings were fake? Yeah. Well, Bart Sibrel is back in the news again. The Tennessee conspiracy theorist who was punched in the face by Buzz Aldrin is doubling down on his claims that the moon landing was fake on the 50th anniversary of the historic Apollo 11 spaceflight. It was in '69 on July 20th that astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz made history by successfully landing on the moon, and Armstrong made man's first step onto the moon's surface. Well, Bart Sibrel, 55, says the moon landing was staged and mankind has never been there. He claims that shadows in the photograph from the landings, which appear to intersect at different angles, would be completely impossible to take on the moon. He says he even has a secret audio track of the CIA directing the fake moon landings. Oh, he's all in. He is absolutely all in. He goes, I went from being the biggest fan of the moon missions to their biggest critic. Yeah, he made headlines in 2002 when he confronted Aldrin, calling him a thief, liar, and a coward. Well, that led Aldrin to absolutely punch him right in the face. Sibrel dedicated the last 30 years trying to prove the moon landings were fake and has directed and produced 4 low-budget independent films on the subject. You know, this guy sounds like the type of guest we need on this show. Maybe we'll have to try and get him. Back to British Columbia here. Now, literally about 2 hours drive west of me. All right, there has been this massive slide. Literally a mountainside came down and has completely blocked, except for a little stream, the Fraser River. Like this rock, it's probably the size of a skyscraper. It is massive. Well, what happened is it's cut off the salmon from being able to go upstream to spawn. The fish cannot get through. And because of the risk of salmon populations potentially dying, they've come up with a quality way to try and figure out how to get the salmon back to their spawning grounds. So what they have done, rescuers have spent weeks devising a plan where they're going to fly the fish by helicopter to a spot on the other side of the rock fall. It's not known exactly how many fish are stuck right now, but it's believed that only about 700 of the hundreds of thousands of fish have been able to pass through the area affected by the rock slide without help. Many of the First Nations people rely on salmon for food and ceremonial purposes. Jonathan Wilkinson, the Ministry of Fisheries, Oceans, and the Canadian Coast Guard, said the government has been working around the clock to help fish. Officials have not said when the airlifting will begin, but they are now constructing a holding pond for the salmon so that way they can rescue them. Now, the fish will be transferred from the pond into 780 2,700-liter tanks before a helicopter will move them up from the landslide and put them back into the Fraser River. They're hoping that the water, which will be oxygenated, will help keep the fish calm during the short flight. I mean, this rock that fell, like literally, you got to realize the Fraser River is a big river. It's not a deep river, but it's a big river in those areas. And it was literally part of the mountain just blocked the entire way. So it is kind of very concerning for the fish stocks, especially on the salmon, because they are a big lifeline to the people here in British Columbia. We'll continue to see how that goes. Here's a weird story. All right. I don't like sharks. I got a fear of the great white shark. Well, officials in Cape Cod are working to find out about some sick and twisted humor that a person has. See, what's happening here, there's this person out there who is leaving lifelike fake legs around a memorial for a bodyboarder who died there in September after being mauled by a great white shark. Yeah, reports say that 3 legs have been removed from the beachside memorial site for Arthur Medici, the 26-year-old who died after being attacked by a great white while boogie boarding about 30 yards off the beach. His death was the first caused by a shark in Massachusetts since 1936. The first leg appeared in March, the second one in June. The second leg drew some attention because it was bolted into a fence, according to police. Officials were also interested in how lifelike the 2 legs were. The fake leg found during the weekend was in jeans and had a gash that appeared to be having blood on it. The report said the blood dripped to the ankle. One leg had an RIP tag on it. Yeah, the report said Medici, who was born in Brazil, likely suffered a severed femoral artery in his leg and bled out in minutes. Yeah, doctors on the beach said Medici died before reaching the shore. Fake legs were not considered vandalism, but were reportedly removed because they were in poor taste. At this time, reports say, from the police, they don't have anyone to charge, and they don't have enough information. Let's get to the thought of the day. Who does that? Honestly. That is one twisted sense of humor. I don't know whether that's funny or not. I'm confused. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air because, well, we love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What is the scariest highway you've ever driven, and why? Yeah, let's get into it. Stephen, Highway 116. Thought the LSD was worn off. Nope. Damn center line was like a wreathing snake. It took 45 minutes to go 5 miles. Wow. That is an all-new high right there. All-new high. Continuing on here. Tim, none. All kind of quiet here in the Midwest. Francesca, Crow's Nest Pass on Highway 1 in British Columbia. The heavy fog with the baby at the time in the car. So scary, I cried. Yeah, that is a freaky highway. Matthew, 410 in Brampton. It's full of people. Probably should not be driving. Sandra, I didn't drive it myself, but the Autobahn with the speed was scary at over 200 kilometers an hour. I did drive fast there, but learned all the field roads. Yeah, Catherine. Colorado, there's a pass called Wolf Creek Pass. It's not too bad until you get into the inclement weather. Then you feel like you're going to fall off the side of the mountain. Joe, believe it or not, the highway to hell was a very easy commute. A little bit too much AC/DC there? That's what I'm thinking. Nicholas, the Coquihalla with my pops during a huge snowstorm in a Super B hauling lumber. Truckers are a different breed. I was slinging prayers to every god I could think of, and here's my old man laughing at my expense, not even breaking a sweat. I owe a ridiculous amount of random gods a temple to be built in their name. Yeah, Coquihalla can get a little crusty sometimes with the ice. I've driven that one numerous times. All right, moving on here. Let's get to it. Serena, The one I drove near Whitewater, Arkansas. Yep, that Whitewater. Bad maps, non-existent signage on a twisty back roads while trying to get to St. Louis around 2 a.m. I might have been abducted by ETs, and I still wonder why I didn't see Bigfoot. CETA. Tail of the Dragon at Deals Gap. Twists and turns, mountains everywhere, and nobody goes the speed limit. PBR. Highway 2 going to Nashua, Montana. What is haunted by peeps that died back when there was no speed limit. Another Joe. US 160 East going towards Monument Valley at night. Skinwalker territory. Ooh, could you imagine? Eric. Highways here in California are just pathetic. Now the Coquihalla Highway in BC needs to hit that. I need to hit that bad boy on a Harley. I bet Dave rules that road. No, I don't. That's south of me. Don't need to go there. I go the Highway 1 Canyon route. Much more scenic. Raina. When I drove over the Benicia Bridge near Napa, Highway 680, because it was over water, it looked like we were gliding on the water. My knuckles were white once I reached the fairgrounds. Damn it, I hate bridges. Ian gets the last one. Some little beat-up roadway from Las Vegas to Wells in Nevada, not a street lamp or signs for over 100 miles. It just screamed, Route Get Probed 71. That's the thought of the day today. We'll do it all again tomorrow on our Facebook and Twitter pages, so make sure you play along. Make sure you hear your name get read, because that's what we love the audience participation for. Big thank you to Captain Shirk for putting our SOR Newswire together tonight. Fantastic job as ever, Captain. Great work. You can find all of her work on the SOR Newswire at spacedoutradio.com. Also, a big thank you tonight to Matt Smiley, talking about the Highway of Tears. What an absolute pleasure to talk to him about this case. This is one that we are going to continue to follow, as you never really know what's going to happen there. And, of course, what's happening right now in the last week. That's something we got to pay attention to for sure. So thank you so much, Matt, for coming on. His website, highwayoftearsfilm.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, in our chat rooms on Spreaker, the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook, and on Revolution Radio. We can't forget the Snarkers on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Come play along there any night you want. Wherever you may be listening in, we say thank you so much for doing so. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Hey, big thank you to each and every one of you for sharing your evening with us. Because together, my friends, say it with me, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home tonight. Good night, everybody.